Good afternoon. I will now call the University Senate to order. I think we have people mostly joining. I have a lot of blank boxes here. It's great to see people if we can. There we go. Wonderful. So beginning our business for the day, item 2 concerns administrative responses to University Senate actions and is presented for information. Item 3 is a list of recent faculty, staff, and student deaths that I've been sent for announcement to the Senate. I invite you to observe a moment of silence while I read the names. Kelly Bauer, Daniel Egley, Paul Glazer, Corinne Larson, Barbara McGinnis, Autumn Morinville, David Stevenson, with gratitude. Item 4 is an approval of minutes from the University Senate meeting on December 5th. Amber, please initiate the poll.
Ten more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. With 109 ayes and 1 nay, that motion carries.
Thank you, Amber. Item 5 is my president's report. It's been 2 months since we last met. Quite a few things have happened since then. I have a number of system-wide updates that I would like to share with you today. I'd like to start by focusing on the rapidly changing landscape in Washington, D.C. There's been a number of new policy changes proposed by the federal government, and some of these developments have created substantial uncertainty, concern, and fear among members of our university community. I referenced this in my system-wide email on Monday, but I want to take this opportunity again here live to reaffirm my commitment to fostering a diverse, equitable, and inclusive environment, one that supports the needs of each and every individual across our campuses, regardless of their citizenship status. Public research universities like ours play a vital role in supporting and advancing a society that is humane and just. Here at the University of Minnesota, these values are ingrained, and it advances and elevates our mission to have diversity of thought, equity, and inclusion of a broad range of voices. It elevates our education, it elevates our research, it elevates our teaching, and it makes our community a richer, better place to live, work, teach, and learn. I want to assure you that my leadership and I truly value these activities that I have supported for all 30 years of my career, and I support the diversity of thought and inclusion, which enhance, again, our teaching and strengthen our research. I want to be really clear, despite confusion over the last weekend, that we have not rolled back DEI at the University of Minnesota, and we have not made any preemptive changes to our existing programs or people. Instead, we're focusing our commitment to our current employees and programs that contribute to this important work. My leadership team and I felt it was the responsible decision to pause expanding our current activities or hiring new personnel until the federal policies are further clarified so that we could focus on our existing people and programs. I've tasked a group of university leaders to monitor the ongoing developments that are coming out of DC, so that we can make assessments of them, analyze them, and then work to communicate to the community broadly what we know and how we are managing them. I also want to take this opportunity to clarify the university's position when it comes to international students and scholars. This, again, was a lot of confusion this past weekend, which I think created even more fear, and it just saddens me. First and foremost, I want to say that I care deeply about our international community. International students and scholars are a core component of our identity and our excellence. They always have been, they always will be. We have personnel and resources in place, and have advanced those to support the members of our international community who may be affected by the new federal policy changes. We've launched to try to provide resources, a new webpage to answer frequently asked questions, and to provide additional resources and places that people can get questions and answers that may be specific for them. We included some information that was specific to immigrations and customs enforcement. I want to reinforce, despite a lot of confusion, which caused fear, that campus departments of public safety, including UMPD here on our Twin Cities campus, do not have a role in enforcing federal civil immigration laws. Our officers do not view it as their role to inquire about an individual's immigration status. They are focused on public safety, your safety, fostering trust, and maintaining strong relationships across the university community. We recognize that colleges and universities across the country are under a lot of heightened pressure and scrutiny. And that said, I just want to be clear, the University of Minnesota will not waver, and it's our commitment to our students, our international community, and to fostering a welcoming environment for students, faculty, and staff from all over the world. Together, we'll stay true to our strong public service mission to ensure the strong community that we have and our collective success and safety and security together. Next, I want to provide some important updates regarding 2 leadership searches. I want to start with the Vice President for Strategic Initiatives, which is a new leadership position here at the University of Minnesota. This Vice President of Strategic Initiatives will play a primary role in advancing multiple cross-cutting initiatives that elevate our shared mission and goal. They will collaborate and coordinate with senior leaders and stakeholders, collaborate with shared governance along with academic and administrative units system-wide to advance shared priorities and the necessary resources to support their effective implementation. Last fall, I convened a search committee co-chaired by Vice President Shashank Priya and Dean Jamie Prinkert. That committee has reviewed applicant materials and conducted interviews with candidates before making their recommendations to me. I'm excited about the candidates and we'll have more information to share with our university community in the coming weeks as it pertains to the search process. Last month, we also launched a search for the university's next executive vice president and provost. Provost Croson will step down at the end of the academic year, and it is my goal to identify a new provost by this summer to ensure for the community a smooth transition in this very important time. Dean Sarah DeWalt and Executive Vice President Greg Goldman are co-chairing the search committee that includes broad representation across our campuses, schools, college, and units. We've partnered with Isaacson Miller, a national search firm, to assist us with recruiting a broad and diverse candidate pool. The search committee held their first meeting earlier this month, where I charged them with identifying and recommending a candidate who embodies our mission, vision, and values while positioning the university system for continued success. This position is critical to our public mission and strategic vision and to the community as a whole. And so part of my commitment to ensuring our search process is transparency and participatory nature. We've begun to gather feedback from the university community through a series of listening sessions with key stakeholder groups focused on the qualities and qualifications essential for this leadership role. There are opportunities in those sessions to shape the position profile that will be used to advertise this position and to assist Isaacson Miller in the recruitment of candidates. I'll provide more updates on the search process as we move forward. As many of you know, our current strategic plan, MPACT 2025, is winding down with the final report being presented next week, the Board of Regents meeting, which means we're in an inflection point. And now is the time, despite all the other things going on, we must continue to work forward and looking ahead at who we want to be for a university in a strategic fashion. So it is time again for us to come together as a community and reimagine what the University of Minnesota will become, which brings us to our maroon, gold, and bold plan. You will see and hear this phrase a lot more as we ramp up. Over these next 2 months, there are wide opportunities. Many of you will get probably multiple opportunities to provide input, both in town halls, in your school or college or unit, or by surveys to give us initial direction for strategic priorities for the university, which will help point us towards a vision for our university together towards 2035, while we create firm plans for what we will have accomplished in 2030 to get us there. So as we work together to design this what I hope and think and believe will be a bold new vision that represents who we truly aspire to be as a university. I want to say again, we're really looking forward to hearing from you. I have resisted over and over again specific calls to give people what my strategic vision is for the university, because I would like to hear what our community's strategic vision is for the university and to craft that together. It must be reflective of the many voices that make up our university. Again, in the coming days and weeks, you'll be invited to participate in a series of town halls. Those are now starting to hit the actual dates in February and March, listening sessions, focus groups, and surveys. And together, I think we can really broadcast the best of who we are and who we can become. Next, I want to provide some updates regarding our also bold and new path forward on the future of healthcare in Minnesota. Over the past couple of weeks, our newly proposed vision for healthcare has generated a lot of positivity, along with good and great questions. And I want to take this opportunity to reaffirm that our proposed solution is still being worked through. And there are many transparent and comprehensive discussions to be had. But we are very excited about the opportunity to partner with Essentia Healthcare. I have invited in the full Fairview Health System to vision together towards a large new health system entity that can best move forward with the voices of patients, providers, and Minnesotans. As we provide more clarity, again, the University of Minnesota and Essentia Health are coming together to propose a new non-for-profit healthcare entity and system, and have invited the full Fairview Health System in as well. This system proposed together would expand and extend our shared strengths and service across to the state's healthcare needs, improving access to rural health across the state, and advancing our medical and health sciences mission by improved service to many across the state. A top priority is to maintain and enhance the ability for all of our physicians and healthcare professionals across University, Essentia, and Fairview to continue to serve the need of patients with the minimal disruption to their current working environment. This means the continuity and seamless coordination of care, and again, with the minimal disruption to patient and provider relationships. We are in early stages. It is important to acknowledge that one of the impetuses for this is the university's existing agreements with Fairview expire at the end of 2026. Our contract with them, they have not renewed our contract with them. And so in the next short months, we must determine our path forward. And I'm very excited about this path. This timeline has created the need for an urgent and innovative new path that can help break the current phase we've been in now, trying to assess the next steps with our Fairview partners. This would ensure this path forward we're excited about would ensure the continued sustainability of our medical school, and again, sustain the relationships that our physicians and caregivers have been really committed to over many years. We must solidify this path in the coming weeks and months. We have an urgency to this path right now so that we can give patients and employees in our faculty and health sciences schools the answers that they deserve after many, many months of negotiations. To help answer questions and provide more timely updates, we've developed a new website that includes detailed information about this newly proposed vision for healthcare in Minnesota. Moving forward, our priorities there will remain consistent. We will work to continue to provide high quality, accessible care for patients while supporting the tremendous health professionals, faculty, and students across our organizations so they can do what they do best, which is care for patients. Finally, I want to express my enthusiasm for us to come together next month for an in-person University Senate meeting. I and we collectively have heard over and over again from senators about the value of engaging with one another in the same room. This feedback is what prompted our conversations with the University Senate Office and FCC about reverting back to the original format of in-person meetings. I realized 2 months ago, we had a little bit of confusion around how that decision gets made, and we've worked to clarify that. I've also asked our University Senate office to support the system campuses with their practice. We obviously won't be moving to all in-person meetings at first, but we will begin a cadence with some in-person meetings. And I'm really excited about that so that we can have these sorts of conversations together and we have a chance to get to know each other a little bit more. The ultimate goal here, of course, is to foster those increased collaborations and engagement among the very important University Senate. And so I look forward to seeing you all in person next month. So with that, I'll thank you for your support, your leadership, your collaboration, and your care about this community as we move forward as one university community. So this concludes my president's report. Item 7 are questions to the president. I have indeed received some questions that were submitted in advance of today's meeting, and so I will start with the first one. I have a number that were received in advance. The first is members of the MSAFE Implementation Committee invested many hours, 1,300 hours of thoughtful work and consultation with UMPD, university administrators, faculty, student, staff bodies, and the regents and other community members of how to implement improved safety and policing on campus. One of the key planks of the final report is UMPD serves a university campus, and a large part of its scope of activities and mission relate to values of equality and inclusion, the rights of assembly, free speech, and traditions of protest that are common among university campuses. It is understood and expected to be different from other police departments. The question is, what specific guidance are you giving to UMPD leadership to follow through on upholding the recommendations in terms of specific practices, values, boundaries, and judgment calls? So first, I'll answer this by saying I want to extend my gratitude to the individuals who invested much of their time and energy in the MSAFE Implementation Committee. And I fully recognize and appreciate the tremendous amount of work that went into developing that final report. In terms of specific guidance being provided to UMPD leadership in response to this report, I should note that the public safety and UMPD now currently reports, as it used to in the past, to Executive Vice President Greg Goldman. Executive Vice President Goldman was provided a copy of this report shortly after he assumed oversight of public safety last month, and along with his team, he is working to diligently assess those recommendations around the practices, values, boundaries, and judgment calls. The next question I have is, with the recent executive orders from President Trump, there's a great deal of stress and concern surrounding ICE and immigration. There's a recent article in the Daily about immigration. Can you elaborate on the university's stance and what the school is doing to ensure the safety and constitutional right? So thank you again for this question. I'm aware both of the article as well as the correction of the original headline, which better expresses the work of the administration, and that those recent developments have really just, including that article, exacerbated uncertainty, concern, and fear among a lot of members of our community. And I want to say again, I care deeply about our international community. I'm committed to the safety of all of our students, including those regardless of citizenship status. We're a global university, and our international students, faculty, and staff are a core component of our identity and excellence. I want to reinforce that campus departments, let me say it again, I want to reinforce that campus departments of public safety, including UMPD, do not have a role in enforcing federal civil immigration laws. Their focus remains on public safety, fostering trust, maintaining strong relationships across the university. Accordingly, our officers do not view it as their role to inquire about an individual's immigration status. I know there are a lot of more questions. We've created a webpage on safe-campusumn.edu. You can find the link in my February 3rd email that has many resources for answers to frequently asked questions on this topic. Because this is evolving every day, our teams will continue to update that webpage and to provide updated information and guidance. I think we all know, again, that the colleges and universities are under a lot of heightened pressure and greater scrutiny, and we will not waver in our commitment to supporting our students, including our international students, faculty, and staff from all over the world. And on that webpage, you'll find a number of resources that will specifically support them, as well as for instructions what to do, which has not happened in the past decade, as I understand it from our folks here, if federal immigration officers do arrive, and what our guidance is and education for the community to manage that. The next question I have a lot of questions pre-submitted, folks. Will the University of Minnesota continue to stand firm in its dedication to diversity, equity, and inclusion programs? This includes dedicated departments, positions in the related fields of women's studies, LGBTW plus studies, African American studies, et cetera. What about budget cuts to these programs? Again, as I referenced in my report, as well as my system-wide email on Monday, I have not rolled back any of these programs, and I stand firm in our commitment to these programs. We are not making any preemptive changes to our existing programs. We do have to assess and continue to assess what the federal guidelines and orders come down, as well as to what the individual agencies, our science agencies, NIH, NSF, what changes they make in funding, and we'll have to continue to understand those and work with our community to ensure that this good work, to work as much as we can to make sure that that good work has continued. But I have not made any changes to those programs. As the message from my senior leadership team on Tuesday clarified, our focus is on institutional actions and communications relating to executive orders, federal guidelines, and research and grant requirements. There seems to be a lot of confusion, but let me say clearly, the review of DEI-related communications is the responsibility of the Office of Diversity, Equity, our Equity and Diversity Office, or the responsible academic department or unit. That seems to be a confusing message that was out there. We're trying to provide clarity on the federal orders for executive orders that come out. And that's meant to apply to institutional communications, and certainly not personal communications among colleagues, communications that are used in teachers, setting speech, or faculty, or others in the university community or in their own behalf. There is no intent of censorship here, folks. With that balance in mind, units are required to share with the Office of the General Counsel proposed actions by the university or its units in light of executive orders. So, for example, we did not want units providing information on stopping of current programming based on their interpretation of federal orders when those have not been clarified yet, including grant and research activities, budget decisions, or employment actions. The goal there is to provide guidance in light of the applicable law and the other federal direction. They'll forward the proposed action or communication to the team of our senior leaders to help give guidance to our institutional leaders on the actions that are needed in their units. Next question. At the October 24th, 2024 university meeting, President Cunningham I shared that the violent incident caused by the protesters put staff and safety at risk. Let's see, this question says that we cannot tolerate that sort of activity. And this was the reason that we had UMPD respond. The question here is, what forceful, emphatic response can I expect to protect BIPOC immigrants and Native American employees who can be targeted by ICE? How are we prioritizing the safety of these groups who, just based on their physical experience, could be targeted? Again, I'll say universities like ours play an essential role in supporting and advancing a society that's humane and just. Here at the university, diversity, equity, inclusion is ingrained in our values. I hope you received the email again from Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations, and I'll reiterate his message that we're fully committed to keeping all members of our community who are affected by our immigration policies safe and well-informed so that they can best navigate their responsibilities and options. And we've provided a plethora of resources through the immigration offices, both for students, staff, and faculty, with any questions on that. Anyone on campus should reach out to your supervisor or OGC before taking any action if anyone is asked for any information on any member of the university community around their immigration status. The university does not provide private information, including immigration status, unless required by a subpoena or a court order that has been verified by general counsel. So that is not information that we simply provide. Next question. Under my leadership, will the university straightforwardly comply with federal directives against having offices roles directly supporting DEI initiatives, or stand firm in our past commitments and join other universities in mounting challenges to these directives? My fear, and I have heard this, that we are leaning to the first one with cancellation of interviews for the law school's assistant dean of DEI position. Again, I'll speak clearly to this. We are not pausing any of our current work or activity that is going on. We are not expanding new hires at this time in this role. And the reason is I'm bringing new people here, having them leave positions in other places and move at a time when this landscape is so uncertain is irresponsible, and we're pausing it until we get clarity on that landscape. There are federal grants which are being instructed that they may not receive funding for portion of their grants going forward. And I want to make sure that our commitment first is to the people that we have here at the University of Minnesota and to our current workforce before we would expand that workforce. But we have not cut any of those programs. And I encourage all of you to look across your departments and programmings and note that there have been no changes to any of those programs or any of those people. That is my focus on supporting our current programs, our current employees, and our current strong belief in the value of diversity of thought, equity, and inclusion of voices that strengthens all of our missions. My next question here I received regarding the Twin Cities chapter of the AAUP. And what I'll say here is that question is not related to university governance or the work or decisions of my administration. So I encourage whoever who asked that question to seek the information they have through a different venue, because that's not a question for me. Oh, I'm out of time for Q&A. Okay, I have one more question here that I'll answer from the pre-submitted questions, and then I'm told that I'm out of time. At the December meeting, a senator requested the president provided senators with information on the costs associated with the October 21st occupation of Morrill Hall. Can I provide that information to senators? The second part of the question is about some confusion about UMPD and criminal charges against the students with Hennepin County and the timing of those charges. And the answer to that question is we informed Mayor Fry and the Minneapolis City Council after they inquired that the cost to repair damages to Morrill Hall exceeded $67,000. And I want to reiterate to people, UMPD and the university does not file charges. Hennepin County files charges. The university does not file criminal charges or control those charges. In terms of the timing in relation to the student hearings, I can't comment on specific student matters, but the criminal process and the student discipline process are separate processes, and they operate totally independently from another. And so with that, our time is over, and item 7 is thank you for all the pre-submitted questions. I think I got through the pre-submitted questions. And so keeping us to time here, item 7 is the provost's report. Provost Croson, the floor is yours.
Excuse me, can we extend the time for questions? I'd like to hear what the others have to say.
I'll second the motion.
To do that?
To get clarification on processes with Senate office. Nancy, can you get clarification with me for the Senate office on what the process is? And also,
and just a point of order, if we do, I had lowered my hand thinking we were going to move on, but I would like to not lose my place in line. Thanks, if we do this.
I need clarification from the Senate office on the protocol.
Yeah, this is Nancy Sims. parliamentarian. This is something that can be raised. I believe I don't have the reference books open as a point of order or point of privilege. I think I heard a motion. I think I heard a second. I would like to point out that any extension of discussion here cuts into time at the end of the meeting. And that's just, I want to make clear of that because people have been surprised by that in the past. Any other Senate staff who wish to weigh in are welcome to do so on that front.
I
How
would
long
just
are
add
we
that
gonna
we-
extend time?
So we need guidance on the extension of that time.
So I made the motion, it's David Jacobs, I made the motion to extend, and I would say I mean, we'll have to be really quick. I see like 10 hands in front of me, so 10 minutes would be quick, but I would really like to hear what people have to say. So that's my motion, is to extend for 10 minutes.
And I think I heard a second. Was that right? Okay. So with that, oh, do you need to vote? Sorry. Amber, help me out.
Yep.
Nancy, this
Throw
is
in-
Jen. Could you confirm that it's 50% or 2/3 for us, please?
Sorry, too many channels here. I believe that's a 2/3 vote because it's an agenda change, but I'm not 100%. I need to check. I think let's proceed with the vote. I will try to check while we're voting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good. I am going to launch that poll right now.
Okay.
Ten more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. With 112 ayes and 24 nays, that is 73% agreeing yes. So whether it's 2/3 or not, that motion carries.
Okay. Now I want to respect Penny Edgell. I believe you were at the top of the list before we went down. So your question.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I was too quick on the button both times. So very quickly, it may be that my questions are more appropriate for the provost, and if they are, then I'm happy to have the provost answer them. I'm concerned more with the University of Minnesota. Are there plans to support our research and our teaching in areas that are going to be increasingly, I fear, targeted? I just prepped my social theory class. That's if anyone who got a hold of that syllabus could easily say, wow, this is everything that's wrong with higher education. I don't care. I think they're wrong. But I guess what I would like is there any plan to give any kind of statement to the community about those kinds of things? I don't expect you to come up with one right this minute about the university's commitment to supporting professors, graduate students, whoever is doing teaching and research in areas that might be now considered to be sensitive, that the university will support academic freedom, support your right to teach and to do research as you see fit, and to not have that be restricted by government interference. So I'm wondering if the university has a plan to address that, and also if there's a plan for cooperating with other universities to kind of make a more blanket statement. And this actually goes to research funding as well. As we know, the NSF and other funding agencies there are a list of keywords for things that they're not going to fund. So I'm wondering if there are plans or discussions between you and other university leaders from other universities to do something like maybe think about
30
coming up
seconds.
with a war chest, to come up with a war chest to fund research that's no longer going to be fundable. Thanks.
Yeah, and there's in some ways I'm happy to make a statement about that, and I thank you for the question, which for me is really obvious, and which is I am firmly committed to academic freedom for you to be able to teach and write and research in all the areas that are important for the world. So I think that's sort of the easier part of the question. There are certainly there may be changes, and I think on the federal funding side. And I think this is where, if I can have one comment that really sticks with the community right now, is there's a lot coming out, and it's fast and furious. And as much as we can all, try to breathe and just stay calm while we figure out, what will happen and what won't happen, and take a little bit of a longer view of that, because it's changing so fast, that making any proclamations or adjustments or we have to see how it's going to land for some of these pieces, for sure. In terms of the great research universities produce wonderful science and knowledge that helps the world, and that's an important part of what we do. There may certainly be areas that are funded less. I used to research in one of those areas that was funded less, so I understand that. To the extent that the university can support funding, from other, if it doesn't come federally, from other organizations and such, for people to be able to continue to do that research. That's certainly one path. The way the federal executive orders are coming down are, the way they were written last week was very globally. The way that they're potentially going to be enacted by agencies right now is more scalpel-like around funding that will potentially be cut. But again, we just need to see what is going to happen there. Our national professional organizations like the AAU are talking very loudly about what the impacts of this would be to the country and to science and to our national competitiveness, and we'll continue to work with them on those pieces. So, again, I would encourage right now, I know this is very concerning. It's concerning, to our researchers, it's concerning to faculty. I'm certainly supportive of defending our academic freedom to be able to research and teach, and speak about areas that are of importance to the world and are not stymied. That's part of who we are as a great research university. And then we're just going to have to navigate all of this together to how we get there, well understanding that there are federal policies coming down that we're going to have to navigate. So I would encourage, again, for folks, as I asked you 2 months ago, to assume good intent and assume that my administration is doing everything we can to support the great work that you're doing on the ground in your curriculum and in your research and in the ways that you're speaking with students, and that we're going to continue to try to work to defend those great values. It's clumsy sometimes it's a little bit of a comparison to the beginning of COVID in terms of a lot is happening all at once, and sometimes communications, I will tell you, are not perfect. We have to readjust and then try to figure those things out. But the intent is real and our values are real. Elizabeth?
Hi, President Cunningham. I want to follow up on Penny's questions. I'm in the sociology department, but I'm a demographer. My discipline doesn't have departments. What we have are NIH-funded centers. And so this attack on federal agencies is truly existential for us as a discipline. Meanwhile, I have a brilliant student doing research on children's firearm deaths. I know that's very dear to your heart.
It is.
And she's on an NIH diversity supplement. I'm not expecting that she's going to get the time that she's entitled to on that. And I want to know more what you can say about the plan to protect people whose jobs will otherwise disappear because of this targeted research censorship and funding freezes. I've been looking for a signal that this is a priority, and I haven't heard it. And so, the answer that I'm hearing you give, Penny, is we have to wait and see what happens. And also we'll look for other kinds of funding. And to me, that feels, I'm looking for something that's stronger than that signals that we can create ways to protect jobs so that people can weather this period without losing their careers. And can you say more about the degree of priority that has for you in this time?
Sure. And you know, and feel for the many people who are worried about their jobs, specifically who are on federal funding right now. I mean, across the globe right now, people on federal funding from USAID, AID to others are losing their jobs. So, you know, one thing we're trying to do through the VPR's office is to understand as notices are coming out. So, I mean, if I cannot provide a blanket statement that we can support all of the federal funding that gets cut. First of all, we have to understand what the scope of that is, and we have to understand the length of it. And before we could do either one of those things, would be completely premature for me to promise that we can keep all the people that are on federal funding right now, whose federal grants may be cut, that we'll be able to keep going forward. I wish I could say that. But that's not practical. What I am trying to understand is what's the scope of that as those changes come through. If it's possible for us to, depending on the scope, if there's possibilities of, we obviously will honor people's contracts, who, you know, contracts and employment components, and then what grants have done since the beginning of time when they get cut. For whatever reason they get cut annually, is you try to keep good people working on other parts of the grants or other parts of the work. And I understand that's wholly unsatisfying, but I would be giving you an answer that's not practical to tell you that the university could necessarily fund, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars of grant funding if it wound up being that large. Now, hopefully it will be much smaller than that, and potentially there is some funding that we can come up with, but without knowing the extent and the stretch and where this is really going to land, I can't commit to those things, but I commit to the value, and we commit to the advocacy for our federal agencies for why we shouldn't cut great work that's being done and the importance of that great work in that science. And we will continue to advocate for that.
Do I have time to respond?
Maybe quickly. I know there's other people that want to talk to.
Yeah, I just feel that there's a lot of room in between, you know, we commit, we'll keep every job no matter what without knowing the scope, and we have to just wait and see what happens. There's a lot of room in between to say, you know, what level of priority this is. And I think that's the kind of signal that I and all the rest of us who I'm talking to are looking for.
It's a really high priority. I mean, this is why it's a really high priority for us to keep the great work that's going on across our grants and our units and our programs. I mean, this is who we are, and this is the work that's being done here. I hope that helps some. It's again, this feels a little bit like the beginning of COVID. I wish I had more concrete answers for you. In the next few weeks and months, I'll know more. What I can commit to you is when I know more, I'll tell you more. But I don't know, I don't have all the answers, and nobody does right now. And so we're trying to figure it out at the national level. But I can commit to you what my values are for the work, and how important the jobs and people in our community are.
Thank you.
I'm now out of time, but yeah, I'm willing to take another 2 questions, and then I think we're out of time. We're over the 10 minutes that you guys had voted on. So the next person up here is Claire.
Hi, I'm Claire Halpert. I'm an associate professor and director of the Institute of Linguistics. I'm not a faculty senator, but I'd like to request that a senator cede me some time.
I'll cede my time, Claire.
Thanks, Alicia. And I would also like to move to extend the question period, since it seems like there are so many colleagues who still have questions.
Seconded by Sarah Buchanan.
Amber, do you want to initiate a poll? I want to remind people that it just means we won't, I believe we still end on time. We just won't get to everything.
Correct. Do you have a time, Claire, that you're making the motion for? How much time?
I guess another 10 minutes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. And so now the question was?
Okay.
That's just poll first.
Do you need to do the poll? Right.
I'll do the poll right now. Ten more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. With 98 ayes and 46 nays, that is 62% in favor. That motion does not carry.
Okay. Thank you so much for the time. I am here today also with questions about the executive orders and federally funded research. And I've been contacting my faculty senators in particular over the message that went out from Rio yesterday to PIs on federally funded projects. The message requested that we review our awards and identify any of these ideologically blacklisted terms that are in the executive orders, and that we then self-report our awards and potentially impacted activities for an internally created database that the U is creating to potentially assess the impact of these awards. I'm really concerned about this message, both because nowhere in there did we see any defense of academic freedom or indication that the U is taking any proactive steps to combat these executive orders on their legality, as our state attorney general has been doing. But instead, I worry that this message creates a chilling effect. It's asking us to participate in creating a database that could allow the U to more efficiently capitulate to enforcing the executive orders, and that can make us as researchers vulnerable to ideological attacks. So my questions are, why are we choosing to remain passive observers in this fight over
30
the
seconds.
legality of the executive orders? Why is the U as a state actor creating its own internal compliance process that by its own admission in that message is vague? And why should researchers trust this process? So what would prevent outside groups from requesting this information and using it to launch ideological attacks and undermine academic freedom at the U?
So I'm so glad you asked this question because I'm thrilled to get to clarify this. So first of all, assume good intent, and it's a follow-up really of the last question. So we are being asked all the time, what could we do to support people who may lose funding? So that's the origin of the intent. The message needs to be clarified, and we have gotten that feedback. I think what we're really hoping to get from people, and I think there'll be a broader message sent about this, is for the people that are being told that their grants are being cut. There have been faculty that have been receiving that message. It would be really helpful for us to know that so that we can start to understand what the scope of impact is for this on our faculty. Because if you do want us to defend it and advocate for it, which we are trying to do, we have to understand what the impact of it is to our faculty and researchers, right? So it's clumsy. I understand it's not meant to be, that's not meant to be Big Brother. That's meant to be, how do we try to get a handle on the situation so we can best support faculty for doing the good work? I believe Vice President Priya will send out a clarifying message for what he's looking for from people. And again, the intent is if you're being told, first of all, if you're being told to take down websites, or you're being told, as I was told some faculty were, or you're being told that X part of your grant is not funded any longer. One, we want to know, because we're not sure that actually is legal and it stands, and we don't want you to dismiss people until we can give you that guidance. So that's the good intent there, right? The orders from last week didn't stand. They didn't stand for the next 3 days. So I don't know where the ones that are coming out from these agencies, they are being challenged by many, many legal entities across the country, and we'll have to see where they land. But the Vice President of Research's office knowing about them, if you're being asked to stop doing things, or certainly if you're being asked to stop funding that would impact your personnel, if for the university to help, we have to know about those things, and we would hope that individual PIs wouldn't be automatically reacting to those without first checking and getting good guidance from the VPR's office, so that they could not overreact to messages that are coming out in a very confusing way from agencies and from the government at large. So I hope that answers your question. Again, I'm going to really ask people to assume good intent in the messages here. So it's an attempt to try to support the faculty. So
you have to be done.
I have to be done now.
Yeah, because
Yep.
technically this is the end of the University Senate.
This is the end of the University Senate tide, and we still have Provost Crosson's report. So thank you for the great questions. I hope they clarified some things. So Provost?
I might want to yield to our Senate staff or a parliamentarian about how we want to handle the remainder of the meeting.
We're working on that.
All right, while you work on it, I will speak and let me know if I need to stop. So as President Cunningham mentioned, we spent the last few weeks just navigating the executive orders, the OMB memo, which has now been rescinded, lots of other news out of Washington, D.C. I won't spend more time on that. I will mention, in addition to our support of our international and non-US citizen students, community members overall, we also want to make sure that we know when people are traveling overseas, especially if they are not US citizens, so that if the policy changes while they are abroad, we can help them get back. So our policy is very explicit that if you're going to travel overseas on university business, you must register in advance. We are going to be enforcing that policy starting now. So please tell your constituents that we need people to register so that if you are stuck somewhere or if we need to help get people back home, we are able to do that. I have not been given guidance to stop, so I'm going to keep going. In the meantime of all of this, the university life continues. So the search is progressing for the College of Pharmacy dean. Work is ramping up on our Higher Learning Commission reaccreditation process. As a reminder, the university has to submit for reaccreditation every 10 years, and our visit is scheduled for September 2025. As is previously discussed, we've launched 3 coordinated task forces on artificial intelligence. Those groups have met and are starting their work. At the request of the Council on Professional Education, which are the leaders of all the professional programs across the university, we searched for, hired, and announced a new Associate Vice Provost for Professional Education, Dr. Amanda Sharp, and we're delighted to have her joining our team. As you probably saw, the Board of Regents approved the Graduate Assistant Union Agreement on January 21st. And so we've been working with the Office of Human Resources, the graduate school deans and associate deans to make sure that it's implemented. For faculty supervising RAs and TAs, there may be some changes versus how you have interacted with them in the past. So just be aware that guidance will be coming there. And then the president has asked me to advance the recommendations from the Faculty Professional Conduct Review and Implementation Group report. So I'll be working with FCC leadership and the Office of Faculty and Academic Affairs to think about how to move that report forward. Finally, as President Cunningham mentioned, between our last meeting and today, I announced my intention to step away from the provost position over the summer. I am grateful for all of the collaboration that we have had over these last 5 years. It's been truly joyous. And this is an amazing university moving in a positive direction, and I'm confident that this position will attract many outstanding candidates. So thank you all. With that, I'm going to skip the questions because we are over time for University Senate and let the staff get to the business that needs voting. So with that, I'll pause. Thank you all.
And I was asked to entertain a 15-minute extension of the full meeting so that we could get through the rest of the items on the report.
I'll move that motion.
Second.
Amber, would you initiate a poll?
Yep. I'm going to use the same poll that we've been using, but this is for, yeah, so this will be for the full meeting. Ten more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. With 108 ayes, 29 nays, that is 72% in agreement. That motion does carry.
Okay, so now we're going to go to item.
Yeah, we're gonna skip the
Oh.
questions to the provost. And go
But
straight
we're
to
gonna
the
go-
SEC report.
Okay, we're going to go to the SCC report, item 9.
Okay, thank you, President Cunningham. I'm shortening this on the fly, so I apologize as I prioritize a few things in here. I know that there have been questions about University Senate meeting modality, so I want to include that update. This was also a submitted question to me as FCC chair. I want to be clear that I believe the president's announcement in December about a return to in-person for Senate meetings was made in good faith and with best intentions. Based on well over a decade of practice, no one was aware of the bylaw that SCC was to be setting the meetings with the approval of the president. With much appreciation to our parliamentarian Nancy Sims, who spent considerable time on the issue to make sure we now moved forward in a way that was consistent with our bylaws, we held a discussion at the Senate Consultative Committee, SCC, on January 27th. In partial answer to the submitted question, we considered questions and concerns submitted to SCC members in the Senate office, as well as the broader consultation done by SCC members. We did not specifically consult other Senate committees. Please know that no matter where you personally are on the spectrum, from fully in person for all meetings to fully virtual for all meetings, your voice was represented at the table in our discussion, which ranged widely, and it became quickly clear that there is simply no consensus. And so the SCC turned to compromise, and the subsequent vote was 11-9 in favor of one spring meeting in person and 15-5 in favor of having 3 out of 6 meetings next year in person. So the March 6th meeting will be in person and the April Senate meetings on Zoom. Weather and agenda items will be the primary factors in selecting the 3 meetings for next year. The Senate office, Senate Consultative Committee, and President's office will continue to work out the details of implementation, and we will share those details as soon as they are available. Let's see. Skip that one. Strategic planning process, I wanted to highlight that, as noted by President Cunningham, that has begun in earnest. And the outside firm that is helping us with that, EAB, had a listening session with consultative committee leaders on January 23rd. And myself and past SCC Chair Mark B are on the Strategic Planning Steering Committee. And we held our first meeting last week. And I want to echo the president in saying, please, please, please engage with the town halls and listening sessions and surveys and all of the ways we're going to try and get your feedback, because that's the only way that the Strategic Planning Steering Committee can do its work, is with you doing some of the work to help us out. Let's see. Moving quickly, so I want to end with specifically inviting and welcoming university senators to stay for the Faculty Senate if they have comments on the core curriculum, academic freedom protections for non-tenure track faculty appointments, or other items for discussion there. We do adhere to the formality that non-senators must be yielded time in order to speak. However, I've yet to see anyone not be yielded time. Non-senators wishing to speak may either reach out to a senator in advance and ask to be yielded time, or may simply raise their hand to get in the queue and ask a senator to yield time once recognized. So that concludes my SCC report. Thank you, President Cunningham, and I hope I've gotten us some time back.
Okay.
Point of
Thank you
order.
very much, Professor Goodnow. Item 10 concerns revisions to the administrative policy, faculty outside consulting and other commitments. Is there any discussion? If no, seeing no hands, Amber, please initiate the poll.
Ten more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. With 104 ayes and 1 nay, that motion carries.
Thank you. Item 11 concerns the final report of the Task Force on Institutional Speech and is presented for information. Item 12 concerns the call for nominations for Vicki R. Courtney Award for Outstanding Service to the University Senate Governance. If you know of a faculty member, P&A, or civil service staff member or student who has made outstanding contributions as a member of the Senate or committee, please consider nominating them for this award. Item 13 concerns revisions to the administrative policy, institutional conflict of interest, and is presented for information. Item 14 concerns old business. There is no old business for the University Senate. Item 15 concerns new business for the University Senate. Please note that any new business will be referred to committee unless special permission is granted by 2/3 of those voting and present. Is there any new business?
Point of order.
Nathan?
Yeah, I made this a few minutes ago, but I think my mic didn't pick it up. I'd like to ask for a ruling from the parliamentarian on whether we are able to skip questions to the provost and whether or not that can be put back on the agenda.
I actually don't make rulings. The chair has discretion to implement whatever interpretation of parliamentary procedure the chair chooses to implement. I have received the same question via direct message from someone else. I don't think this was made absolutely clear, but we are out of time for the University Senate agenda. Had we not extended time, as the president entertained a motion from the assembly, had we not extended time, we would have had to stop and switch over to faculty senate. This is all a little bit fast and loose with the rules because we wanted to try to get through some of the rest of the University Senate agenda. We did mention when people voted to extend discussion earlier that certain parts of the later agenda would be compromised if we extended earlier parts of the agenda. It's not perfect under perfect formal rules, but perfect formal rules would have ended our conversation already. Does that address your question, Nathaniel?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Point of information? I hope it's a point of information. And that is, are faculty senators expected now to work with their schools in the development of collegiate policies on institutional speech and unit speech?
I'm sorry, is this I need a protocol check? Is this a call for new business?
No, it's just a question.
I think we're
I mean,
we're at the point we're at right now is for new business.
well, yeah, okay.
So the Senate, the parliamentarian, I don't see any new business, and you know, I think the earlier vote, you know, noted not to extend time there further.
All right, I do think we have somebody whose hand is up for new business.
Okay. Who was that? Sorry.
Yes, hi, I'm Matt Bodie. I'm with the law school, and we just wanted to make a brief comment on the law school search for the associate dean for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I have my colleague Brett McDonald, who's on that committee, and who's an acting senator for today, if we do have time for that business.
Perhaps the Senate office can aid me. We're out of time, but do we take new business?
Yeah, we have to, well,
We have to get to the faculty senate.
that's what I'm trying to figure out. Also, do we need to vote on it? Ask, why don't you?
I believe we would need a second for that motion, and then it's a 2/3 majority to do the new business now or have the report now. Nancy, you can.
Oh, right,
tell-
that's right. If for new business requires a 2/3 vote. So if we'd like to vote for new business now.
I'll second it.
All right. Here's a poll. Please, if you're not a voting member of the Senate, don't vote. Ten more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. With 81 in favor and 53 against, that is 60% in favor and does not meet the 2/3 threshold.
Okay, thank you very much. So at this point, with that vote not passing by 2/3 vote for new business, that will be referred. I understand then new business is referred to committee. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay.
Do this one quickly, 5 more seconds. And last call. With 116 ayes and 10 nays, that motion carries.
Great. Thank you so much for your robust engagement, and hopefully we'll have more time to talk soon. We are adjourned. The Faculty Senate will now convene, I think now. Where do I go to for that? All right. Well, good afternoon again. I will now call the Faculty Senate to order. Item 2 concerns administrative responses to Faculty Senate actions and is presented for information. Item 3 is an approval of minutes from the Faculty Senate meeting on December 5th. Amber, please initiate the poll.
Five more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. With 95 ayes and 1 nay, that motion carries.
Item 4 is the FCC report. Professor Goodenow, the floor is yours.
Thank you again, President Cunningham. I'm actually going to cut and do a little bit on the fly and add some things here. So I apologize in advance if there's some segue issues. The FCC has had 3 regular meetings of the whole FCC since our last meeting, and I'll give a report on those in a second. In between those meetings, myself and Vice Chair Perry Leo had an opportunity for individual meetings with Isaacson Miller, which is the search firm for the provost search that is underway. We advocated for a search process which would yield us candidates with an understanding of academic freedom and responsibility, as well as a respect for and value of shared governance. We also stressed the importance of an opportunity for faculty to engage with the finalists. The FCC as a whole then had an opportunity for a listening session with Isaacson Miller on Monday, January 27th. And I'd like to take a moment to thank the senators who are serving on the search committee itself, Perry Leo and Senators Michael Galope and Eric Schwartz. To the other search mentioned by the president, the FCC leadership was invited to visit with each of the finalists for the Vice President for Strategic Initiatives, and we provided an evaluation of the candidates. And as a reminder, I was on that search committee. I would like to just take a moment because it fits into one of my answers to, I think, address the question, a point of order from Senator Schwartz earlier. Our vote that we took on the institutional statements task force report and proposed policy in December, like all of our votes that aren't on educational policy or curriculum, are advisory. So that vote in December did not create a policy. It endorsed a report and work of the task force, which was then sent to President Cunningham. So I hope that may have addressed your question. There's no required action as a result of what the Senate did in December.
If only I had read my agenda. Got it.
So now to the regular meetings of the FCC on December 19th. Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs, Beth Lewis, came to talk about the service awards, which I'm not going to talk about because we're going to hear about those later, and to discuss ideas around an academic freedom seminar or panel or series. We had a conversation with the provost, and I think one of the things that has been on people's mind, and this maybe I'm going to speak to because I think it was also a question to the provost, it was regarding the task force on administrative hires being populated with Regents professors. And as noted, or as would have been noted by the provost earlier, I think you would have heard that the FCC leadership was involved in consultation with the administration on the charge and membership of that task force. And at least the FCC leadership is supportive of a task force composed mainly of Regents professors. That is not a new thing to have a task force of Regents professors. We are asking in doing so, we are asking our best scholars at the university to do what they do best: research an issue, ask questions, think critically, and sift and winnow their way to a report. So I can assure you the FCC does not at this time plan to interfere with the administrative task force, despite being asked to do so. And we will certainly scrutinize the report that comes out of it and any findings. That is our role, I think, to scrutinize the report and findings. Moving on quickly to January 23rd, the two big focuses of that meeting were on core curriculum. So we're going to talk about that later. And we did breakout rooms to prep for the listening session with the search firm to help with the provost search, because that's just such an important next step for us. Let's see. Today we met hours ago, starting with a robust discussion about potential changes to the phased retirement policy. And we got an update from Vice President of HR, Ken Horstman, on the workforce reinvestment work. The Ken Horstman and Provost Croson and Executive Vice President for Finance and Operations, Greg Goldman, are overseeing 4 work groups: civil service and P&A administrative staff success, faculty and P&A instructor success, compensation, and benefits. We learned their work at considering and reconsidering issues in the workforce reinvestment resolution is ramping up with the start of the spring semester. Modality regarding the faculty senate was discussed, but no decisions have been made. And we heard a report from our faculty legislative liaisons about what's happening at the legislature and the University of Minnesota budget process to inform us about that. And we had an update from the provost, including a lot of the things you heard earlier in the report from the provost and president. So I will stop my report there. And again, just trying to create some time. So sorry for the speed talking. Now you know how my students feel. So. I think next is questions to me. Yes. And I have questions submitted. Do you want me to just forge on in?
Please forge.
Okay. So I also had some questions submitted ahead of time. The first one was on modality. And I hopefully, that's why I included that in my SCC report that I went through quickly. If that doesn't answer the question, please feel free to reach out to me directly or to the Senate office. There was actually also embedded in there a little question about questions. I just want a little Senate 101. We are required by our Constitution, when the president is present at a Senate meeting, that there's an agenda item, questions to the president. With the provost, that is, since Provost Croson joined us in 2020, that's been a regular item. Prior to that, it wasn't common. Questions to SCC and FCC chair are the newest. Those have only been a couple years, and they are typically as time allows. So the other question had a lot to do with policies and how they intersect with shared governance. And in the interest of time, what I would like to do is propose that I will send out an update with an answer to that question, because there's sort of 4 links. And the question is, does every policy go to the Senate? Not exactly. Every policy goes to a Senate committee, and some go to the Senate, some go to the Senate for information, some go to the Senate for action. And you can see why I'm not going to take all the time to explain that now. I'm going to put that in an email to you as a sort of Senate 101 kind of piece to that. And then the final question that I had pre-submitted to me was regarding, again, the task force on administrative hiring and some messaging that people have received around whether the Senate Committee on Faculty Affairs and the Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee are the appropriate venue for that work. The specific question was, has anything or anyone prevented SCAFA or AF&T from investigating or reporting to the Faculty Senate on the issue of administrative hiring? The answer is no, not that I'm aware. No one has asked them to not do that. The second question was, do those Senate committees need a resolution from the Faculty Senate to take up those issues? Or can they do it on their own? That answer would be a resolution from the Faculty Senate is not needed. Our Constitution is explicit that the Senate committee may form a subcommittee on its own. So those were my pre-submitted questions, one of which I'm deferring to an email. So.
Question from the floor, Michael?
Hi, Jen. I have a quick question. I'll keep it short. First of all, I just want to say we have a great reputation for shared governance at this university, and it makes us much stronger. I don't know if you talk to your colleagues about shared governance at other institutions, but I think this is a great strength, particularly during such a challenging time. So I want to thank everybody for just being at this meeting and being involved. It's something I really value about this institution. I wanted to ask Jen, the question, you brought up this distinction that the Senate makes policies about education and curriculum, if I got that, but not other matters. And I'm just wondering where in the Constitution I can find that distinction, because this is new to me and I'm not aware of it.
I may have to phone a friend to the Senate office if I don't get the answer completely correct, but I will address your first point. I agree, our shared governance is not perfect or pretty, but gosh darn it, we're good because, we're above average. It's Minnesota. And I do hear that from our colleagues when I attend the Big Ten Academic Alliance shared governance meetings. We are quite often envied by others. So I agree and would echo your thanks to others. So my understanding long time, and this goes back to when I chaired the Senate Committee on Educational Policy. Educational policies are not advisory. So those are the ones that are not. So the Faculty Senate has purview over those. And the other one, the power for the what we're talking about later, the core curriculum, that is embedded in policy, not our Constitution. And I will have Amber drop that in the chat after I can find it. There's basically the faculty control the curriculum and it extends to this one. So that one's not in the Constitution. That one's in policy. I suspect and I'm going out on a limb, so I'm going to say if I say this wrong, the Senate office can fix me, or I may have to fix it next time. If you look at the charges to the Senate Committee on Educational Policy, and you compare that charge to other charges to committees, it's more explicit that they are, I think, developing policies or making policies, and the other committees are consulted on policies. And I'm not using the right words because I don't have it in front of me, but I want to give you an answer here. That's my understanding of the answer. Perhaps what I can do, since I'm already committed to sending out an email about where policies intersect for action and for information and which Senate things, I can add a better answer to that if that's okay. So, but hopefully that was somewhat helpful.
I think it's important for Eric Schwartz's question because the unit statements policy was one of the great success stories of shared governance. We took a very challenging issue, we worked through it, we found a policy that had a strong consensus, right? And my understanding of the Constitution is that we do have broad legislative authority over creating policy. So I would want, especially in this climate, to be able to stand behind that, right? When we vote on a policy that it really is enacted, if we are enabled constitutionally to do that. So I think we should be very precise about it because there's a lot at stake in empowering shared governance about this. Thanks.
Thank you. I would say my understanding is an administrative policy comes from PAC after the PPC, President's Policy Committee, and the Policy Advisory Committee. So again, I will try and, short of a Schoolhouse Rocks video, I will try and maybe include some of that in the email. But I agree that was great work in December. But again, my understanding is it is advisory, and yeah, I'll stop there because time. So, and I am not keeping track of time.
So I am keeping track of time, and so I believe we're out of time for questions to Professor Goodenough. So I'm going to move on to item number 6, which concerns awards for academic unit service. Associate Vice Provost Ole Graham is here to talk briefly about those awards. Vice Provost, please proceed.
Thank you, President Cunningham. Senators, I'll keep this brief. This is just an update on the Academic Unit Service Award. As many of you may remember, the Academic Unit Service Award recognizes the value of ongoing institutional service at the local level. The awardee must demonstrate exceptional commitment to institutional service that positively impacted the functioning or climate of the unit in the previous calendar year. So this year, calendar year 2024. One award is available for a member of the faculty, broadly conceived tenure system faculty, term, clinical faculty, instructional or research academic professional in each unit, each department, academic department, system-wide. And in addition to this $500 sort of guaranteed award in each department, 6 additional individuals will be awarded for extraordinary service. We have made the nomination exceptionally easy this year in order to increase participation. I think we awarded about 65 of these last year, and encourage you to nominate colleagues in your unit. Reach out to your department head. The call for nominations is due on February 18th. As a reminder, this Academic Unit Service Award was product of the Faculty Consultative Committee. It was initiated by the Faculty Consultative Committee and the Faculty Senate in 2023. And it came out sort of in tandem with FCC's work on the Workforce Reinvestment Resolution, and with support of the Faculty Senate and the Provost's Office, which is administering the award. This is the 3rd year of the award. It has been really well received across the university.
Okay, moving on to, let's see, item number 7 concerns the report of AF&T Task Force on Academic Freedom Protections for Non-Tenure Track Faculty Appointments. Professor Nathathar, Chair of the Task Force, will present this report. A discussion will follow. Please proceed, Professor Nathathar. Are you muted, or there you go? We can't hear you if you're talking.
Yeah, I said I prepared some slides so that I could get through the material that I need to get through in the time that I have.
Wonderful.
So hopefully you can see the slides. Yeah, so let me just arrange things on my screen so that I can see my slides too. Yeah, so before I actually start, I should say that there are a few members of the task force who are also present in the audience. This is Dania Lebo, Dina Wassenberg, and possibly Jerry Cohen. And when it comes time to answer questions, I'll call on their help as well, as that of Eric Van Wyk, with whom we've discussed the report fairly extensively. Okay, so the context for this work, right, that the task force carried out is the basic understanding that academic freedom is kind of vital for many of the things that we do at the university. It's particularly important for faculty, and it comes in at least 2 respects. Okay, first of all, it ensures that we have the right to expose all the ideas that we want to, and thereby to encourage critical thinking in the classroom. And with regard to our research work, it gives us the ability to investigate any topic that we want and to report frankly and freely on the results that we obtain, something that's critically important for the public, for us to be able to serve the public good. Many of these thoughts are actually becoming quite important in the present climate, right? And so there's added urgency to the kind of work that the task force did, I think. Okay, the focus of the report that I'm going to talk about is academic freedom, right? It's protections for academic freedom. However, there are kind of spillover effects that I should mention, because these are also things that concern a lot of people. There's spillover effects in terms of job security, protection from exploitation, and in general, from the perspective of ensuring that there is quality in the work that we do, in the research and teaching that we carry out. Traditionally, the tenure system is something that has, at least one part of it is that is supposed to provide a mechanism for protecting academic freedom for faculty. But its effectiveness, has been understood over several decades, is dependent on it being applicable to all faculty. In this context, it should be noted that there's a growing tide of contingency across the country, right? And this is something that has affected our university as well. And in 2021, there was many groups, Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee, there was a task force of the FCC, several other groups that were working on some related topics. They observed that there over 40% of all the faculty at the university at that time held contingent appointments, and this was a cause of worry. So it was a cause of worry, especially at within the Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee. We wrote a statement. At that time, I was the chair of the committee. We wrote a statement about it, calling for a task force to be set up. And then eventually there was a faculty resolution, that the Academic Freedom and Faculty Senate resolution that was brought forward by the Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee, which was voted on positively in 2022. And that's what led to the creation of this task force to look into the phenomenon of contingent appointments and to suggest remedies to the lack of academic freedom protections for them. So just to give you a background for the work of the task force, the chair for the task force was appointed in January 2023. Right? That's when I took on the responsibility of being the chair. There's a charge for the task force that was developed, and it had three components. One was to collect data concerning term appointments and for their use and rationale, and to understand existing hiring, retention, promotion, and other mechanisms across colleges and across units in the university, right? And eventually using all this data to develop recommendations to strengthen academic freedom protections for people who didn't hold tenure-track positions, right? So subsequent to developing this charge, we went around talking to many people in the university across colleges, and took some time to constitute the task force. And eventually that was finalized in fall 2023. And it had a fair diversity, including both contingent faculty members as well as tenure-track faculty members, and from a variety of colleges across the university. And it also had representations from the Twin Cities as well as non-Twin Cities campuses, and it had ex officio members from the Provost's office. And once the task force was formed, starting in fall, it collected information, discussed the information that it collected, and eventually it came to conclusions on this work, on what it had understood. Right? And all this work was done in fall 2023 through spring and through the entirety of spring 2024. And eventually the task force released its report on June 23rd, 2024. Right? So I can say more about, if it's necessary, about the kinds of data that we collected, and also the discussions that we had and how frequently we met and so on. But for the moment, I'll just pass by that. Okay, so based on what it looked at, the data that it looked at, and the various things that it understood, the task force made certain observations. The first one that it made was that actually the Board of Regents faculty tenure policy is an excellent vehicle for protecting academic freedom for all faculty at the university. However, there are two problems right now with it actually being able to exercise its ability in this form. Okay, so first of all, the one problem is that its intent is to apply to all faculty, but that intent is to a significant extent negated by creating tracks outside and treating them as if they lie outside its scope. So that's one problem. The second problem is that the faculty tenure policy actually has fairly clear guidelines about when non-tenure track appointments can be made, but these guidelines are being violated in a number of colleges and also a number of units, especially in particular units that we looked at, okay, in the course of our deliberations. Okay, and this is in fact a major cause for the high degree of contingency at the university, right? And that in turn, because these contingent appointments don't have strong enough academic freedom protections, is a cause for the degradation of these protections. Okay, so that's one thing. That is that the spirit of the faculty tenure policy, as well as its word, is being violated. A separate issue is that the faculty tenure policy actually allows for the use of term faculty in certain circumstances, and over the years, this legitimate use has grown, right? But there's a problem in that there isn't any specific statement of policies that govern issues that are important to protecting academic freedom for these kinds of appointments. So these kinds of appointments are typically clinical faculty appointments, for example, in the medical school and so on. And there isn't enough provision in the faculty tenure policy to protect academic freedom for them. And the last point to observe that we observed was that there is another class of personnel in the university who have faculty sort of requirements similar to faculty, and these are the class of librarians, right? So they have an acute need for academic freedom protections, and these are promised to them in the appointments that they have, right? But there isn't any explicit document currently that carries through on that promise. Right? And I can say a little bit more about that in a bit. Okay, so the substance of the task force recommendations is based on these observations. The first and most important aspect is that it calls for an elimination of the violations of the existing faculty appointments policy. So on the one hand, it asked that this be done by bringing all the faculty tracks, all the varieties of faculty tracks that have been created, all under the scope of the faculty tenure policy. And this would require some kind of a reclassification of people, especially in something called the P&A faculty track. Okay. And together with this—
Milan, I just want to give you a 5-minute heads up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I have just 2 slides. Okay. Together with this, another thing that should happen is that the creation of these auxiliary faculty tracks has been facilitated by a little bit of an ambiguity in the faculty tenure policy, and the recommendations call for small changes in the text to make sure that this kind of misunderstanding doesn't take place in the future. Okay. And then the second part of it is also to ensure that the stipulations that there are in the faculty tenure policy concerning term faculty appointments, that these be adhered to fairly carefully. Okay. So both these steps, that of reclassification and ensuring that there is adherence to the guidelines for stipulations for term faculty appointments, these are things that have to be sort of carried out, have to start at the unit level. So that's the recommendation, is that that's where the process should start. Then the other things are there's a recommendation to develop a policy for evaluation and retention and for long-term tenure track faculty, non-tenure track faculty, such as the clinical faculty, that are permitted by the faculty tenure policy, and also to develop guidelines for contracts that are of increasing duration as the length of service increases. And finally, to substantiate the promise for academic freedom protections for librarians with an actual policy that gives it some teeth. Okay, so that's the substance of it. Here's what is envisaged as practical steps to be carried out towards realizing these recommendations. First of all, there should be a vote by the Faculty Senate to decide whether it accepts the task force recommendations. And I've only described them. The recommendations are there explicitly in the report, so the faculty senators should read those reports and then based on that, decide if they would like to accept the recommendations. If these recommendations are approved, then there are certain steps that are also talked about in the report. So first of all, departments would have to carry out an assessment in the 6-month period about how they would comply with existing policies concerning term appointments, and how, if they employ P&A faculty, how they would carry out a reclassification. An implementation task force should be set up that develops a concrete reclassification plan based on what they've heard from units, and also should set up a timetable for reclassification and should then supervise its realization. And the first step, that of determining a timetable for reclassification, should be done within a year. And then there should be a task force that is constituted to develop policies for term faculty and librarians, term faculty that are permitted by the faculty tenure policy. And finally, the faculty senate, through appropriate committees like the Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee and the Senate Committee for Faculty Affairs, it should coordinate with the administration and the Board of Regents to realize an approved plan. Okay, so that's basically what a summary of the report is, and the report and recommendations is. And I should stop sharing now so that I can take questions.
Wonderful. Thank you for the report. Item 8 is discussion of the report. Jeremiah?
Thanks so much. This is a very interesting report. Hopefully you can hear me well. I have a couple of questions here, but one of them is the main one. One of the things that the report points out is that there are challenges with terminology, and that the circular definition of faculty or faculty was part of the sort of one of the main challenges that you're discussing. I am wondering, the definition of research, there's no definition of research that's made in sort of a straightforward, useful way. It's unclear to me, for example, whether the task force really would mean to imply that, for example, if I have a design engineer who works in my research group, that person should be turned into a faculty member, even if they support research and there are research related activities. What is really meant by doing research in this sense is quite vague. Perhaps the intent is to leave that to the units to determine what the definition of truly involved in a research activity would be.
Yeah. Right. So it's not the job, or it's not appropriate for the task force to decide what exactly should constitute or be considered research. This is something that is discipline oriented, and it's a kind of decision that should be made at the unit level. Right. Once that decision is made about what constitutes research, and if it is a long-term if it's a sort of position that is long-term duration, then the recommendation become effective, right? I mean, that's.
I guess I'm surprised that the word independent doesn't show up here. That they're not expected to be independent researchers. But that's
So I'm going to move on to the next question, so we can try to get through some of the other questions. So Terry Caraway is next.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I'm Terry Caraway. I'm a faculty senator from the College of Liberal Arts. I also serve on the Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee, and I also serve on the executive committee of our campus chapter, Twin Cities campus chapter of the AAUP. I'd first like to thank the task force for their work. I'm sure they dedicated a lot of time to preparing this impressive, thoughtful, and persuasive report. In addition to speaking in favor of endorsing the report and its recommendations, I also wish to convey that the Twin Cities chapter of the AAUP has issued a statement in support of the report's recommendations as well. As the report notes, adjunctification has created a large pool of faculty who lack robust academic freedom protections. Their vulnerability to attacks also makes those of us who have tenure or are on the tenure track more vulnerable as well. It means that a substantial proportion of faculty are unable to contribute fully to our university's mission. Especially in the current climate, when academic freedom is under attack, we have a responsibility to endeavor to remedy this situation. We are fortunate to have a strong policy on faculty tenure on which we can build. The report's recommendations provide an excellent roadmap for assuring stronger academic freedom protections for all faculty.
30 seconds.
And I'm glad to see that contingent faculty would have a strong presence on the proposed implementation task force, which I think is really critical for its success.
Not hearing a question there. Was there a question there? I didn't hear a question there. I'm going to go on to Carolyn Bischoff.
Hi, thank you. Carolyn Bischoff, Faculty Senator from the Libraries. My comment is a strong endorsement for this report. I agree with the task force that the assertion of academic freedom protections for everyone engaged in scholarship needs to be backed up with policy and due process. I'm a librarian with continuous appointment. There is no explicit protection or recourse in policy for alleged violations of academic freedom like there is in the tenure code. As I understand it currently, as P&A, we're supposed to go to the Office of Conflict Resolution and hope for the best. I just want to emphasize to my fellow senators that librarians do need academic freedom protection as much as our colleagues in other units. My colleagues have been challenged by outside groups for their development of resources for navigating controversial topics. We develop and deliver classroom instruction that's integrated into courses throughout the university. In cataloging and classification, there's ongoing research and work to change historical practices rooted in bias or discrimination. That is not without controversy. And librarians and curators also select and acquire materials in controversial or unpopular fields or schools of thought, not just in support of current curriculum and research, but extending beyond those needs. I do want to draw attention to a note in the report. Alongside probationary and continuous librarian appointments, the library uses term or annual librarian appointments as well, and the reasoning and justification for habitually using these annual appointments isn't clear. But because we're not faculty, this might not get the same attention. So I'd like to draw the task force or any future steps that
30
come out,
seconds.
to pay attention to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Before the next question, I want to call our attention to, we have 3 more minutes on this topic so that we can get to the full core curriculum discussion. So with that, Julia.
Thank you. I'm Julia Luján. I'm a faculty senator for CLA, and I'm a PNA instructor. My 2 questions are brief. I would like a clarification on what is meant by term faculty, and if that needs to be clarified as to the different categories and subcategories that include non-tenure track faculty. And I would like that to be more explicit on the report. And my second question has to do with the last slide presented, where it says an implementation task force to be constituted to develop concrete reclassification plan. If that is thought of as something that departments do, or if that's something that a task force is college or university wide. Thank you so much for your time.
Yes. So can I respond? So there was a couple of questions. Should I respond?
Yes, we have about another minute left for questions, so you can respond.
Yeah. So first about term faculty. This is a technical term from the tenure code. So the tenure code is talking about faculty, and it actually talks about regular faculty and term faculty. So it's term faculty are those who don't have tenure but are recognized as faculty under the tenure code. Okay. So it's in I pointed to a problem, which is that there's a creation of faculty tracks outside the tenure code, which I think the tenure code doesn't envisage, right? Which has caused all this confusion about terminology. And that's kind of addressed in the report, right? So
I'm not sure if I can ask a follow-up question. I'm sorry.
yeah,
So
let me.
I'm sorry, we don't have time for the follow-up for a follow-up question. I might. We have one other question here, Penny, if you can be brief, and then we have to cut off questions and move on to our next topic.
Sure. I would like to ask if whether or not you are open to, in addition to talking about research, talking about research and creative activity. We have lots of people in the liberal arts college, and the tenure code refers to this as well. We have lots of people in the liberal arts college who engage in creative activity. That is the primary basis basis for their appointment and for their tenure. And we've worked really hard in the college to kind of amend language that only talks about research, because it's more inclusive to talk about research and creative activity. So my question is, would you be willing, not right now, to respond to that concern, but to take it into account in the work of your task force?
Well, I mean, this task force work is finished, right? But it hasn't sort of made any decision about what constitutes research as such. Creative work could fall under the category. That's something that the implementation task force would take into account in the course of coming up with reclassification and such like.
Thank you so much for the robust discussion and the clear presentation. Moving us along right now, item 9 is a discussion on the recommendations from the Core Curriculum 2025 Committee. Professors Catherine Pearson and Will Durfee are here to provide a brief update, and then we will have a discussion.
Terrific. Thank you, President Cunningham. As co-chair of the Core Curriculum Committee, along with Will Durfee, I am pleased to be here to present the Core Curriculum Committee's proposal on behalf of the committee comprised of faculty, academic advisors, and undergraduates from across the university. The committee is excited about this proposal and what it would mean for our students. The many students with whom we have consulted are enthusiastic, as you'll see soon. The committee proposal responds to the challenge put forth in the Boyer Report on undergraduate education at research universities to provide our students with, quote, a transformative education for life, work, and citizenship. The proposal aims to provide students with the broad ways of knowing, modes of inquiry, and multidisciplinary perspectives that they need to prepare them for life after graduation. It increases student agency by allowing students to choose a focus area that relates to current societal challenges that they care about. And it moves from a distribution model to an integrative model that explicitly makes connections across disciplines, and it provides students the opportunity to learn in community with other students from across the university in their focus area, and ultimately to communicate what they have learned through a group project in a signature experience synthesis course. The committee has been working on this since fall of 2021, and this proposal is stronger because of all the feedback and ideas that we have heard, including from many of you in this meeting today, and we sincerely thank you for your engagement. Committee members have held more than 100 meetings from fall 21 to the present. These meetings have included faculty from across the university, individually and in groups, faculty and student governance committees, academic advisors, student groups and student boards, and career experts on campus and those who hire our students. And there have been many more informal meetings. All the feedback has been carefully listened to, and much of it has been incorporated into the proposed curriculum, as I will detail in a bit. So moving first to our current requirements. I know a lot of you are very familiar with this, but I really want to touch upon what students are currently doing so you have a sense of where the proposal differs. Students currently take one course that meets the criteria in all 7 diversified core categories: arts and humanities, biological sciences, historical perspectives, literature, mathematical thinking, physical sciences, and social sciences. Then since 2021, all students are required to take the theme course, Race, Power, and Justice in the United States. And then currently students have a choice of 3 of the 4 of the following themes: civic life and ethics, the environment, global perspectives, and technology and society. In addition, students take first-year writing and 4 writing intensive courses, 2 upper division courses, 1 of which is in their major. Students have described the current liberal education requirements as akin to checking boxes, that they don't really see how their courses fit together. And accordingly, if we can turn to the next slide, that changes with the proposal. So the proposed core curriculum that you have before you has 6 foundations, or broad ways of knowing, including scientific thinking, quantitative reasoning, analyzing the past, the search for meaning, societies, cultures, and communities, and creativity and imagination. These are 6 foundational areas that provide disciplinary breadth in modes of inquiry. In addition, students would choose from one of 4 focus areas that they are passionate about: civic life, environment, equity, or well-being. And then they would take 3 courses in that focus area, ideally that would double count with 3 different foundations so that they will have a multidisciplinary perspective on whatever focus area that they choose. In addition, just as in the current curriculum, students would be required to take a course in race, power, and justice in the United States. The criteria remain the same as it is today. And then the students would now be required to take a class in global perspectives. Today, that's a choice. Students take 3 of 4. That's one of the choices. And about 3/4 of our students take it now. But we felt and heard from faculty that in today's era, it is extremely important that students have that global perspective. The criteria for that course, again, would remain the same. And then writing intensive changes from 5 to 4 courses, first year writing, 2 upper division writing intensive courses, 1 in the discipline, and then 1 in any discipline, and 1 lower or upper division writing intensive course. One of the most exciting things about this proposal, both according to the committee and from all of the students that we have talked to, is the signature multidisciplinary synthesis course at the end. If we could move to the next slide. Great. Thank you. Students in this multidisciplinary course will first engage in individual analysis of how their focus area courses shaped their understanding of their focus area. Then, students will work in small groups on a specific project, maybe a policy recommendation, a research question, a creative response to a current issue. There are many different possibilities. The work on the group project, again with students from across the university in the same focus area, will enable students to make meaningful, cross-disciplinary connections among the approaches that they have learned through the study of their focus area. Students will work on their project and produce a product in their choice of format, a presentation, an art project, a poster, a video, a podcast. There are many, many options. And then each group will share their product in a public-facing manner, such as a symposium associated with the course. The course objectives are on the slide in front of you. Students will learn to synthesize in front of you. Hopefully people have had a chance to see those. And now we'll move on to how the course is organized. So the next slide. Thank you. So in terms of organizational philosophies, so this focus area synthesis course will bring students together with other students in their focus area. It will be run out of the Office of Undergraduate Education. People have said, you know, will this fall on colleges? No, it will be run out of OUE. And the revenue from the tuition revenue from this course will pay for this course. And we anticipate that there will be excess revenue that would then be returned to the colleges. So this course will be, again, centrally coordinated for consistency, but there are a lot of different ways to go with this course. Each focus area will have its own faculty fellow who's an expert in that discipline who will help coordinate the faculty and P&A instructors of this course. So each course would have around 30 students, which would mean about 125 sections a semester. And if this proposal is approved, the faculty fellows would help faculty develop a syllabus. Again, the course objectives would be the same, but faculty would be free to sort of devise their syllabus as they, according to their own expertise, to meet the course objectives, as long as it has that individual reflection and that group project. But the faculty fellows will help faculty develop a syllabus, a week-by-week teaching plan, and then there would be several course structures to help achieve the stated outcome. So in other words, these classes would not just be cookie cutter classes, and we could also envision an online version and a summer school class, sort of maximizing flexibility of this course. We could turn to the next slide. I want to talk a little bit about the revisions since I was last here in December and since Will was here, Will and I were here last year. So as I've noted, we added global perspectives as a requirement instead of an optional theme as it is now, based on extensive feedback. We've made extensive revisions to the proposed foundation categories, formerly called creative expression, interpretive inquiry, and past and present. We've examined and strengthened the rationale for change. We've added an option for courses to triple count with the global perspectives requirement. Everything else can only double count. And then we've revised our writing intensive requirements, as I've discussed. The As we talked about originally, the bookend courses, it was a 1-credit multidisciplinary approaches course at the beginning, which after hearing from faculty from different colleges across the university was going to prove unworkable. So we have removed that 1-credit multidisciplinary approaches course, and then we revised and focused the multidisciplinary synthesis course. As this proposal is implemented, there would be a lot of work done to ensure that familiarizing students with the curriculum, as that 1-credit course was originally designed to do, would happen in other ways. I want to talk a little bit about implementation. So the vote will be a month from now, on March 6th. If the vote is not passed, as Vice Provost Singh indicated in an email earlier this year, we will start recertification of the current liberal education and writing intensive courses that were certified more than 5 years ago. If this plan passes, there would be an implementation task force with faculty committees set up for implementation and certification. And then from fall 2025 to 2026, there would be a student survey for estimating demand for focus areas. We would start soliciting course proposals and work with faculty committees to expedite and facilitate approvals. And then we would also have faculty committees to approve equivalent AP and IB courses. That has been an issue. And then, of course, we would consult with the admissions office to promote the curriculum. This would begin in either fall 2027, or if there were any holdups, fall 2028 for entering new high school students. And then it would begin in fall 2029 for entering transfer students. One more slide on the financial considerations. A lot of questions have been raised here. And if there are additional questions, Vice Provost Singh is on this call, as is Katie Russell from OUE, and they can answer these questions from OUE's perspectives. But there are potential budgetary implications influenced by student choice and faculty response to the new curricula. But the University Budget Office plans for contingency and works regularly with college leadership to monitor shifts in resources and helps to address shortfalls. The Provost's Office and Vice Provost Singh has committed a $5 million one-time allocation and then an annual recurring allocation of $500,000 that has been set aside to fund implementation of the core curriculum over multiple years. And as I discussed in talking about the synthesis course, the tuition revenue for the synthesis course would flow to OUE and be used to pay for that course, but then any excess would flow back to the colleges. And finally, I want you, for the next slide, I want you to hear from students themselves who were asked what they thought of this new curriculum.
Thank you.
Liberal education shouldn't be just like a box to check off. It should really take time and care to complete it.
It doesn't always emphasize connection between different subjects or allow students to explore things they truly care about.
With the changes that are happening in education in the 21st century, I think it's time to update our liberal education curriculum to reflect that.
The new core curriculum is a lot more digestible and welcoming.
The way that they rephrase the liberal education requirements to be more different ways of knowing instead. I think framing it in that sense of learning in different ways allows the students to have greater flexibility on what specific subjects you want to learn about while still getting that different information as well.
We listen to argue, we don't listen to really understand people and where they're coming from and their experiences. And so by throwing in classes like race, power, and justice and perspective requirements, it allows you to take time to understand different perspectives and where people are coming from.
How it emphasizes both depth and connection, allowing students to choose a focus area they're passionate about and explore it through different lenses makes the learning feel more personal and relevant.
That can reflect the individual needs of students and allow students to customize their own path.
A really cool opportunity for students throughout colleges to just connect because they all chose the same focus area, and I think it'd be a really great way for students to make those relationships and then also be able to just recap what they learned in their focus areas.
I've taken a bunch of different courses all over the university, and sometimes I leave those experiences feeling a little bit confused on why did I take that. I think dedicating some time at the end of a degree to think about why you perceived a liberal education is really important.
The synthesis course seems really fun, and I'm really disappointed I won't experience it. The workforce currently is a lot of collaboration and teamwork, right? the synthesis course offers that collaboration in the university.
Thank you so much to our presenters. We'll now proceed with debate. Because we know there's going to be a variety of opinions on this proposal, we're going to utilize the pro-con debate format, even though there is no motion on the floor. Therefore, if you have a question or comment, please raise your hand and set a chat to Amber, noting whether your comment is pro or con. I will defer to Amber to call on people in the appropriate order. When you're called on, please introduce yourself and indicate which unit you represent. As a reminder, non-senators must be yielded time by a senator in order to speak. Non-senators wishing to speak may either reach out to a senator in advance and ask, or may get in the queue and ask for a senator to yield time once recognized. Amber?
First up is Emily Pelton, who is pro.
Hi, I'm Emily Pelton. I'm a faculty senator from the College of Science and Engineering, and I'd like to yield my time to Bobby Weston.
Thank you, Emily. My name is Bobby Weston. I appreciate your time to speak on behalf of advising and support of the new core curriculum. As a member of the committee and an associate director of advising in CLA for the past 10 years, I bring this comment with experience and consultation across campus with advising members everywhere. Advisors are often the primary point of receiving feedback on all things from students. We enter into this process with that student voice at the heart of this design. We want students to have deep learning experiences, to consider broader contemporary topics that excite them, and to be able to have a point of reflection on what this was all about. Advisors want to support students in breaking free of the get it done checkbox approach they've been taking towards their liberal education requirements, and instead see their engagement fire lit in a cross interdisciplinary learning process. Advisors have been hearing from students that they're looking for deeper connected learning experiences. The new focus areas, civic life, environment, equity, and well-being in this proposal offer students the ability to connect with contemporary topics that they're eager to engage in. Students are yearning for connected learning through those different disciplines and are into these topics deeply. These topics do reflect the common areas of interest that students are wanting to learn more about. And by taking 3 classes in these focus areas, students are able to have a better understanding of these complex topics from perspectives across disciplines. Well, we also appreciate the new broader ways of knowing and descriptors of our foundations. The synthesis course, we are greatly appreciative that allows students to have substantial learning in their areas across the core curriculum and to do that across colleges. In summary, advising's really been included and consulted in this process. In addition to myself on the committee, there's also a CSE director of advising. We are in much support of this proposal. Thank you.
Next up is Eric Van Wyk.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I'm Eric Van Wyk. I'm in the College of Science and Engineering and also chair of Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee. So I just wanted to make a comment about the structure of the synthesis course. There have been concerns about this being a little too rigid in its design, right? So the committee, AF&T, wrote a statement some time ago about how to handle these sort of multi-section courses with lots of instructors and the degree to which sort of a top-down syllabus can be imposed on people, right? Instructors of record really do need that freedom to make decisions, and it sounds like this is improved. I think what I heard recently just today was pretty good in that respect, but it should be clear that this is, common syllabi and standardization only goes as far as the objectives in the course description. So it still sounded to me a little more imposition of things, and it should be clear that people have the right to accept or not accept that help when they decide to go teach one of these courses. If that's not the case, then that sort of starts to impede on their academic freedom. So that's all I had to say. Thanks.
Next is Penny Edgell.
Hi, folks. Penny Edgell, CLA Sociology Department. I have a question about implementation, and that is, since some of the focus areas are pretty close to the previous LE requirements, I'm thinking, for example, civic life versus civic life and ethics. Is there an opportunity here to reduce administrative burden on everybody, including departments and staff as well as faculty, to simply say for areas like that, previous approvals will simply roll forward. That is to say, if your course was previously certified in civic life and ethics, you don't need to do anything to get it recertified for the broader area of civic life. I do have a big concern about a lift from the ground up recertifying every course, and I'm wondering if the committee has is open to an implementation plan. I was looking at the report. It's covered a little bit on page 24, but the details are vague, and I'm wondering if the committee is open to those particular forms of streamlining. I think that would make it a lot more doable for everybody, I think, to participate in this.
Next up is Elizabeth Wrigley Field.
And Amber, are you noting, please, if they're a pro or con when they speak?
I'm using that to do my order. I can say it out loud, but
I think that'd be helpful just so we keep the flow.
Okay. Elizabeth has told me that she's con.
Hi, thanks for this. I currently teach a really popular course in the environment theme and also in historical perspectives. I'm really proud of these courses. They cut across disciplinary material in a way that, you know, I think is really, I've worked really hard on. But they are also really deeply grounded in my own particular expertise. And I am really concerned about the idea of replacing courses that are more connected with individuals' expertise with something that is from a centralized office, organized around a group project. I can imagine versions of this that could be good, but it also seems to me like there is a lot of potential for this to amount in practice to a kind of dumbing down of, you know, sort of lowest common denominator standards. And that to me seems like a real loss. So many students have told me that the class is one that they would have never taken without it being part of their liberal education requirement, but that it actually really changed the way that they think about things that are important to them. And I am really worried about losing that drive to do something that is outside of what you otherwise would have done.
And Catherine, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate that comment and the course that you teach. And that actually would fit extremely well in an analyzing the past foundation and an environment focus area, and do, you know, this essentially much of the same thing that course is doing today. And the synthesis class is the only class that is sort of centrally organized. But again, there would be a faculty fellow expert in the environment or civic life or whichever focus area, sort of helping the instructors with their syllabi, which again, sort of to respond to Eric, would be at the purview of the instructor as long as the course objectives were all met, to really help with that development. And so we don't view these courses as cookie cutter courses, but really allowing the different faculty to demonstrate their expertise while meeting those common objectives. And, you know, again, Professor Wrigley Field, I think your course would be great under the new proposal as well. So thank you.
Point of order. Sorry, point of order. I would like Catherine to respond to the question that I raised as well.
Oh, so sorry about that. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So all of the implementation details have not been worked out, but clearly civic life or civic and ethics theme courses are going to fit very well into that focus area. And so what we're sort of loosely envisioning is multiple groups of faculty experts within focus areas to really expedite the approval of these focus area courses. And I think that the example that you gave is an example of one that really could be facilitated. I'm not in a position to say that any current theme courses would automatically be rubber stamped, in part because if this doesn't pass, any course that hasn't been recertified in the last 5 years is going to have to go through the LE certification again as well, because there's a lot of drift over time. And so that's important. But I do think that there's a lot of attention and desire for a really streamlined, expedited process with different subcommittees of faculty tackling different courses in a really streamlined expedited way. So I hear and appreciate that concern very much.
All right, next up is Emily Snell-Rude, who has indicated she is pro.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I'm a faculty senator in the ecology department in CBS. I'll say I'm about 75% pro and about 25% logistically concerned. I'm just going to share 3 of the concerns, but I don't expect responses right now. I will say I really love the interdisciplinary nature of this proposal and the focus on problem solving, which really always engages students with critical thinking. My concerns fall in 3 areas. So first, many of us are wondering about how the changes will affect the landscape of course availability and demand, and wondering how we can predict where new stress points will be in our existing course offerings and where we need to develop new classes and hire new faculty. So I'm really glad to hear from this recent presentation that surveying students is on the to-do list. The second concern, I'm wondering about the logistics of getting courses approved. Given the interdisciplinary nature of the new categories, will there be a bias against some fields trying to get approval in certain categories, and how will the committee be structured that makes these decisions? And finally, this concern is shared with a lot of my colleagues, is the logistics of the synthesis class. Their worries of additional teaching loads on faculty, who, especially those who are already teaching a lot, and concern of determining which faculty members can indeed synthesize across all possible fields. One potential idea that came out of our faculty meeting just yesterday was whether some existing classes with goals and structures similar to the proposed synthesis class could be approved to count as a synthesis class. Indeed, it's possible that many existing Grand Challenges courses could fall into this category and could be a way to continue that,
30
that
seconds.
program. All this said, I'm generally enthusiastic about moving to this new framework, which seems like a really nice updated approach to higher education relative to the more siloed disciplinary focus. And I feel confident that the logistical issues could be worked through. So thank you for the opportunity to share.
Catherine, did you want to respond to any of those questions or concerns?
Just briefly, and I can follow up individually, but one thing I do want to clarify about the synthesis course is no department or college would be told we need a certain number of your faculty to teach this course. So any faculty that teach this course, that would be because they want to teach this course, not because they are told that they need to teach this course. And I think that's a really important clarification, and I'm sorry I didn't make that clear earlier.
Next person, Amber.
Next up is Nathaniel Mills, Con.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think I share a lot of the concerns that some of my other senators who are con will also make. I think, one of the things that I wanted to point out is that, like, I don't see in the report a lot of emphasis on critical thinking skills as the kind of takeaway, particularly at the focus and synthesis areas. There's a lot of stuff about, innovation or, expression, and I think, to me, that's concerning because that's language that suggests a focus on kind of like, meritocratic, individualistic, like what are students going to be equipped with for their careers, rather than what seems to me should be the focus of a liberal arts education, which is a critical analysis of, structures of power and society. And so, I would hope that, any kind of revision would include a much stronger emphasis on critical thinking.
That's a comment noted. There's no response from you. Catherine, next question, Amber.
Next up is Jim Cotner, pro.
Hi, I'm a faculty senator from CBS in ecology, evolution, and behavior. I just want to make 2 points. The first one is students want this. It gives them more agency in their education, not just a hodgepodge of courses. With this curriculum, they will be better able to focus on their own interests. Almost all the feedback I have seen from CBS students has been very positive. Personally, I'm actually very excited to see what comes out of this synthesis courses, and I'm prepared to be amazed. Lastly, the mission statement of this university has 3 core components, and educating students is the first one, and I think this is a good step in the right direction. My second point is it's time. The LE requirement has changed little since its inception in the 1990s. With the exception of being an additional theme added after the George Floyd murder. The current process has been going on way too long, at least 7 years by my count. A lot of effort by a lot of smart people has gone into this. They have tried to keep what works and fix what hasn't, and they've been creative in what they're putting forward, in my opinion. We all have questions about implementation.
30 seconds.
And this will most certainly prove not to be perfect. And when we realize where the problems are, we will fix it. A lot has changed in the world since the 1990s, and we owe it to our students to provide them a more responsive and comprehensive education.
Not hearing a question there for Catherine to respond to. We'll move to the next question.
Next is Michael Galope, Con.
Hello, thank you, Catherine. I know this is a lot of work. I just want to say what wasn't in the presentation is what's being cut from the curriculum, so I think we need to also talk about that. There's no literature requirement anymore, and recent reports have shown that reading scores in K-12 education are going down. I'm very concerned that we're retreating from some of the basics. We also have 100 tenure-line faculty in CLA who specialize in literature will suddenly not have any students in their classes. I just don't think that's great. I think that we want to have faculty in the classroom for LE. We're cutting our science education in half at a time when trust in science and medicine is declining. And when we take those credits out, we're putting them in to, I think, a very well-intentioned idea with this synthesis course, right? And also a new creative arts course, which we haven't talked that much about. And these two ideas, as well-intentioned as they are, have a common problem, which is that we don't have tenure-line faculty who are likely to want to teach these courses. So I'm very concerned, to go back to Eric's point about academic freedom, I think these are very likely to be taught by adjuncts. It's going to be something like writing studies, 125 sections per semester of this synthesis course, 30 students per class. This is going to be a lot of adjuncts. And I just don't
30
see
seconds.
A quality form of instruction for LE. I think people should be in front of faculty. And I also agree with Nate's point about critical thinking. So these are my concerns, as well-intentioned as it is. My concerns are structural, and I can't support it because of that.
Catherine, do you want to respond?
I just to one of the points briefly, and that is in the search for meaning, it explicitly, I didn't show the slides with the foundation descriptions, but, in the search for meaning, I'm reading directly, it asks for detailed analysis and reflection on humanistic literature or creative products. For example, a philosophical essay, a religious treatise, a work of cultural commentary, a documentary film, paintings, novels, music, etc. So, there is definitely a place for literature there, but I know this has been a continued discussion that
we need to be honest that we're condensing humanities and literature into one course, just like we're condensing 2 science courses into one. So that's going to cut everybody's enrollments in half and take people away from faculty instruction. That's my concern, is basically it's a labor and intellectual concern.
Amber, next comment, question.
Next up is Joshua Feinberg, who is pro.
Hi, everybody. I'm a faculty member in Earth and Environmental Sciences and a member of the Core Curriculum Committee. And I wanted to just make a short supportive comment on the multidisciplinary synthesis course. Generally speaking, I think that this proposal is a big improvement over our existing LibEd program, and it's going to enable our students to work with other students from across the university. The multidisciplinary synthesis course is really important because it asks students to reflect and integrate ideas, both individually and collaboratively in a group, on the different foundational courses that they've taken. This is frankly where students are going to learn to figure out how to formulate their own informed opinions on complex societal issues. Our current liberal education program doesn't do this. It doesn't require any kind of intellectual integration across disciplinary boundaries at all. And instead, as was mentioned earlier, is viewed as a checklist to work through as quickly as possible by most of our students. We're living in a time where issues are becoming increasingly complex and multifaceted. For our students to be successful, they need to be able to consider these issues from multiple perspectives and appreciate the different values that motivate people. So this synthesis class is a mechanism that we hope allows all students a chance to do this in a structured way. We've worked really hard and thought very carefully about the course, and while it's certainly not perfect as it is currently presented, we think it's a very valuable thing to move forward with. And I deeply hope
30 seconds.
everyone here will vote to approve this proposal. Thank you.
Not hearing a question there. Next person up, Amber.
Next up is Michelle Mazzocco, who is Con-ish.
Thank you. Yes, Michelle Mazzocco from the Institute of Child Development, a CLA major. And con-ish, neutral-ish, there's much I really respect and value from this. And I really want to thank Catherine and others for the time you've spent sharing it and offering that extra listening session last week. I think where I'm sitting on the fence here is, that I do have concerns, in part because although I am sure to the committee, this does not feel rushed at all. I can see the amount of work that has gone into this, but it is a lot to digest, and it is such a critically important issue. I personally feel it overwhelming to really assess for a vote next month. And so I think the concerns that I and faculty I've spoken with have articulated overlap a lot with the comments from Michael Galoppi and Emily Snell-Rude. So I'm not going to echo those, but to just finish on the point that one of my main concerns comes from the concerns that exist among our undergraduate teaching faculty in my department and our directors of undergraduate studies. I know I had asked a question at the last listening session about input from those who really are at the forefront, on the front line of our undergraduate curricula, and that there was a lot of buy-in. And so I turned to those in my department in those
30
roles,
seconds.
and they had many of the concerns I'm hearing among those who have concerns. I'm not saying abandon ship. I'm saying, make sure all the directors of undergraduate studies concerns have been addressed, and then I would feel much more confident moving forward. But I am worried about the courses that are being omitted, to echo that point. Thank you.
Catherine, any comment before we move on? Okay. Amber, next person.
Next, we have Sarah Buchanan, who is pro.
Hello and thank you. Pro with a caveat. I really love that this proposal is so interdisciplinary. I think it's going to result in amazing projects by our students, and I can just see how multiple fields are going to come together to create some incredible ideas about how our society will move forward into the future. My caveat is the same caveat I brought up in December, which is that our society, our planet, is becoming more and more interconnected all the time. We are a very global society, and yet nowhere in this proposal do we have any requirement for learning languages, which I see as fundamental in this day and age to any education. The argument last time was that, there are automatic translators everywhere, but translators, using them allows a translator to express your ideas and to select words for you. Why not have the same argument for AI that can write papers for you? There are 5 or 4 writing assignments that are writing classes that are required, but no language. And I think that is really a travesty. So thank you.
Hearing not a question there. I don't know, Catherine, do you want to respond before the next?
No, I appreciate the comment, but currently the language decision is a decision that colleges make, as languages currently, as you note, are not in the curriculum. So thank you.
Yes, but that's sad.
Next up is Jeremiah Mons, Con.
Thanks. So my feedback on the proposal is kind of mostly related to the idea of the focus areas. Of course, any kind of curriculum is necessarily a sort of a coercive action that we apply on our students, right? We're trying to guide them in specific directions. And that's, any curriculum is doing that, right? We're limiting the set of choices that they have in order to achieve an educational goal. And that's perfectly reasonable for overall for a curriculum. What I find a little troubling is the structure of the focus areas appears to be rather focused on a specific set of classes of issues and outcomes. That is a way that I suspect there are indeed a large number of students, probably the majority of students, have one of the areas in there that they're excited about, and probably are taking, are happy to take a position, which they feel will be commonly held by many people in the community. I think that there is a significant and perhaps important minority of students who are really not going to be excited about the idea of having to take a public position in front of everyone about issues where they may not hold the majority opinion. Of course, you may wish those students to be present, but you're really sort of forced them. They have no other option. They have to go through one of these gateways to pass through an education at the University of Minnesota. And that's something which
30
I
seconds.
am concerned about in this proposal, that really can be read and could be read by students who are coming in and are unsure about whether they really have a home at the University of Minnesota or whether it is potentially too liberal of a place for them, that they may feel this is the message. This is not the university I want to come to. And I'm not sure if that's the message we want to send.
Catherine, any comment?
Yeah, one comment I want to make that I didn't mention earlier is that there will be an evaluation after 5 years of all of this. And so the focus areas will be one area, sort of how everything is going in all areas will be part of that evaluation. And the other possibility of this proposal is that if students and faculty sort of identify a focus area that we're missing, it would be relatively straightforward to add another focus area in years to come. Obviously not immediately, but the structure of this plan would allow for that. And then the final thing I will say is that, the focus area courses will really range from the sciences to the arts to the humanities to the social sciences, and students will have many, many different options within a focus area, and hopefully all of those options would help allay some of that concern, but I appreciate the comment. Thank you.
Next is, Shanna Waters, who is leaning pro.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shanna Waters. I'm a teaching faculty in the Department of Computer Science and Engineering in the College of Science and Engineering. I have a question about, have you considered how much additional money for large programs like computer science, where we have thousands of majors? And when we talk about, as I was reading through the writing intensive courses, and it says initially the course has to be taught by, either regular, contract, or academic professional staff. And then down below it says the 1 to 30 can be graduate students and or instructors. When we're adding, we do not have capacity at this moment to be able to gear up graduate students to be able to do these small sections. And where is the money to pay the graduate students for these large scale programs like computer science? Where is that supposed to miraculously come from? And I'm just curious because I know that this is a concern among some in my department. So I'm raising the point for them. So that's my question. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to answer part of that question and then turn it over to Vice Provost Singh. So the writing intensive criteria in terms of the number of students per courses, none of that is different than the current requirements today. But in terms of the overall financial picture where the money is going to come from, Vice Provost Singh, if I could turn that over to you.
Great.
Thank you, Catherine. I think the question was about writing intensive courses, and the answer that you gave, I think, is complete. There's no change from the existing model right now. So we don't need any new investment for writing intensive courses that we are not doing today. So I'm hoping that should allay those concerns.
Thank you.
I think we have time for one more comment, and then we're going to try to move through our last items relatively quickly.
Next up is Anoop Joni, who is pro.
Hello, President Cunningham and my fellow faculty senators.
I'm Anup Jani, an associate professor of animal science in the College of Food, Agriculture, and Natural Resource Sciences. I'm supporting this proposal. I think with this proposal, we are aligning with the national movement in general education programs towards the integrative models, which has been under discussion in the past decade. I believe that our students and their parents would feel valued about the higher education and college degrees when the national level data tends to shift neutral or negative in this aspect. So the first thing that the students would like about this program, from my perspective, is the shift to the integrative models, which I think the students will find value right from the beginning of their college education. And this proposal is designed to facilitate the connections between the disciplines and the subjects that they would learn, which I think is necessarily lacking in some of our students. Number two, we are aligning with the world readiness in education, which I believe that the students will have a broad knowledge and the ability to apply it to what they feel is personal and meaningful in their lives. And I believe that that is quite important to give to our students, especially when they want to be successful, not just in their profession. So one of the things which I would also like to say is that we need to prepare our students, faculty, and administrators to this program. We need to get the support of our students, and we also need to make sure that we ensure the quality and periodic evaluation of this program, and to make sure that central coordination and training for the fellows is provided for the synthesis level course. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the robust conversation. We're going to move now through our item 10. Concerns revisions to administrative policy, conducting research with human embryos or pluripotent stem cells, and is presented for information. Item 11 concerns minor revisions to the administrative policy on export controls and is presented for information. Item 12 concerns old business. There is no old business for the Faculty Senate. Item 13 concerns new business for the Faculty Senate. Please note any new business will be referred to committee unless special permission is granted by 2/3 of those voting and present. Is there any new business? Seeing none and hearing none, is there a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second. I see a second. Amber, please initiate the poll.
Five more seconds if you wish to vote. And last call. With 72 ayes and 3 nays, that motion carries.
Thank you so much for the robust engagement. We are now adjourned.